Hey, what's going on, friends? When you buy a property, how do you legally get to it? It's not always straightforward and simple, and we're going to talk about that up next. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk about legal access to property and the different ways that you can make sure that you actually can get to your property legally, because that can be a big effect on your property's value and your ability to get to it if you were challenged, if you did not have the proper legal access to a property. So the first thing that you need to understand is that there are pros and cons and drawbacks depending on what type of access you have. And so we're going to talk about the different types of access and show you some quick examples so you can get an idea of the different types of access and what applies to a property that you may be interested in or a property that you're trying to sell, so you know that what the effects are going to be on the title or the value and the attractiveness to a buyer depending on what the access is. So first, a couple of different types of access. The simple one is access from a public road, right? You're in a subdivision, there's a public road, and the lot is right on it. Pretty straightforward. That can be different if you're on a state highway or a main road, depending on what the requirements are to get access off of that highway. There may be a turn lane that needs to be put in. There may be a special permitting process that needs to go into place. So that's something to always check about. Even if it is a public road, how do you get access from that public road onto your lot? So the second one is access from a private road. The HOA may own the road, and there'll be something in those HOA documents that give you the right to use that road to get onto your property. There are other situations where the road is private, there is no HOA, and we're going to talk about that in a second here and what the effects of that situation can be. Next one is a flag lot. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures here that are going to give you some examples of what these are, and I'll talk a little bit more about them. And then the last is an easement across another property or maybe multiple other properties to get onto yours. So real quick, we're going to go through a couple of quick examples here, and this is just a plot map of properties and the different types of access that you can have. There's a couple of good examples here. So first you have like a main road right here, main highway, and then you have a little public road that comes off of that serves all of these properties. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, public road's pretty simple, right? These lots would access off of the public road, same along the ones that are coming off the road here. But then you may have a situation in this case where you have these private roads. These are private roads, and these lots are accessed from this private road. And in this particular situation, which I'm familiar with, this road was co-owned by the 5 lots that it served. So each lot had a 1/5 ownership in that private road that allowed them to access their lots from this road. So very important to understand that and know who's responsible for the road. Is there an agreement in place? Because sometimes for a loan, it can affect your financing if there isn't a shared roadway agreement that lays out what the responsibilities are of each owner in terms of sharing the cost to maintain the road, because that's going to maintain access to your property. So that's a private road, a shared private road. And then this is a flag lot. So if you look at this, there's a long skinny piece that comes off of this lot right here that comes down to the public road. So it looks like a flagpole, right? Sometimes these lots are bigger at the top, so it looks more like a flag, but it's a good example of a flag lot where you own that piece of access from your lot that stretches down and touches the private road. So when you build a driveway over it, that is actually your property. You're not going over anybody else's property. So that's the difference between a flag lot and an easement, because in an easement, you would actually be driving over someone else's property. You would have a legal right to do so in your deed, and it's a little bit more complicated. So this is a tax map, plot map, and you can see that there is this road that comes off of here and then turns into an easement right here. So it's a dotted line, and it crosses a bunch of different properties and then turns into a cul-de-sac over here and then serves a couple of different lots down here. So there isn't an actual road that this person owns. They have a legal right to drive over other people's properties in order to access their property. And in Hawaii, it's important that you understand this and you look into this and make sure that you have the actual legal right to use the right of way, because a lot of times old style, neighbors get together and you just drive over your uncle's property and you get to it, and then it gets sold a couple of times and people keep doing it, and then a new owner comes in and buys a property and says, hey, nobody actually has the legal right to be driving over my property to get to these other properties, and then it can cause a problem for the properties that were using that right of way to access their lot. So you really want to make sure that if there is an easement that you're using, that it's written into the deed correctly. It's going to be in the title report, it's going to be in the property description, and you want to make sure that it definitely is legal and recorded, and you're not going to have any issues in the future in terms of accessing the property that way. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of complex stuff when it comes to legal access to a property, and you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who understands this, that can help you research this and ensure that you're not going to run into any problems in the future. And on the flip side, you want to make sure that the property that you are purchasing, what are the effects of other people's legal access to use a right-of-way over your property? Because sometimes that's a case where you are the property that has an easement going over it to access another property, and you're going to want to know what that is so it doesn't affect your ability to build in the future or block another person's access. So lots of stuff going on here. We could go into a lot more depth and spend a lot more time on this, but this is a quick overview of the different types of legal access to a property. And the most important thing is ensuring that you do have legal access to get onto your property, because if you don't, it can cause a lot of different problems. So as always, give me a call, shoot me an email, hit me up in the comments if you got questions. Happy to provide you with more information or look at your situation specifically and let you know what's going on and do some research if we need to. So again, the Buy Big Island Property vlog. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Aloha.